All right, so let's go ahead and get started for today. Continuing with dental health. So the past couple of days had some pretty good itineraries come about. From yesterday, and I'm not sure why the screen looks like what it looks like. It wasn't yesterday, it was the day before that, but so let's pick out the book for today, shall we? So, teeth for a lifetime. Teeth tell tales. Okay, that's a good one. Being that I think today is Anthropology Day or something like that, Anthropologist Day, and teeth are very informative for anthropologists. Two sets of teeth inside your mouth, what's in a tooth, the micro world in your mouth, how cavities form going to the dentist, and how to prevent cavities. Yeah. So I really like Teeth Tell Tales. That's a good one. 6. All right, this is chapter 2, Teeth Tell Tales. So you can tell a lot about an animal by looking at its teeth. For example, some animals eat only plant foods, leaves, roots, fruits, and or seeds. Many plant eaters have many plant eaters have very good cutting teeth. Their front teeth are large and sharp, so they can snip off leaves and stems or bite off roots with ease. A beaver's front teeth are so big and strong that it can even gnaw through tree trunks. Grazing animals such as horses and cows are plant eaters too. Their large back teeth are good for grinding up leaves or grains. Some animals eat mainly meat. They hunt other animals for food. Their teeth are very different from those of plant eaters. Dogs, cats, and other meat eaters have long, pointed fangs. They use them to bite into their prey and tear the meat into pieces small enough to swallow. They have cutting and grinding teeth too, but those are not very big or strong. If you watch a pet cat or dog eating, you may notice that it does not chew its food very well. It just swallows it down in chunks. Look at a mirror and check out the inside of your own mouth. Your front teeth are not as strong as beaver's cutting teeth, but they are good enough to take a bite out of an apple or a carrot. Your back teeth are not as big or wide as those of a horse, but you can still crunch vegetables and mash them into a soft pulp. And you don't have long fangs like a cat or dog, but your teeth can handle meat, a tough piece of steak, even a tough piece of steak, pretty well. People eat both plant foods and meat, so you have teeth that are good for chewing many different types of foods. All right. Maybe there's a teeth museum, different types of teeth, animals and different types of teeth. Maybe there's a teeth museum. Teeth museum. Is this the same one that I looked at the other day? Dr. D. Harris National Museum. Doesn't sound familiar. Doesn't sound familiar at all. No, I haven't listed it. I'm sure I haven't used it. It wouldn't be the worst thing if I've used this museum already. I searched it the other day, and I think what I ended up finding was a urology museum that's in Baltimore and not this dentistry museum. Samuel D. Harris. I don't think I've used it. So we can go to this one. The Dr. Samuel D. Harris National Museum of Dentistry. Is there anything about animal teeth here, though? There doesn't have to be, but if there is, Oh, I don't see anything about animals. It doesn't matter though at all. It doesn't matter at all. It's just recognizing the purpose of teeth. Um, yeah. So we're going here. That's for the travel. What are you going to study? Just the different features of teeth. You know. This museum would be the perfect museum for that. There's a bunch of teeth, like really big teeth, and what would be the right situation? Do you like explain to someone something? Um, Maybe just put together, just have, you record a video of yourself properly brushing your teeth and explaining the different parts of the teeth and stuff like that. Yeah, that's what I got for you there. So go ahead and write that up. So this is called the National Museum of Dentistry, the Samuel D. Harris National Museum of Dentistry. This needs to come down here. This is in Baltimore. Maryland. The name of the book is Handy Health Guide to Your Teeth. All right, and you're going to go, and you're just going to, what's the title of this chapter? The focus was chapter 2. Teeth Tell Tales. What's that does it say here? Yeah, I like that. So animals eat mainly meat, carnivores. What about people? People are omnivores. We eat all kinds of foods, but what about people that choose not to eat meat? They are still omnivores, whether or not they eat meat. They were born with teeth that are made for eating both meat and plant foods. Okay. Study, learn about the purpose of different teeth and how to teeth you have. Record a video. All right, so we're done. Really, really early today. And that's good. We're getting better at making the itineraries, which is good. We could do some trivia today, like we did yesterday. Or we could just finish up a little bit early for today. Let's watch a video. Let's watch a video. After taking a closer look at this museum, it actually looks really fascinating. Mhm. That's really cool. Let's watch the video. The teacher. Very cool. I remember sitting in a gym class one day, and the gym teacher asked, when was the best time to brush your teeth? And I think her question was before or after you eat breakfast. And I don't remember what I said, but I said the wrong answer. But yesterday I was reading the book, and the book was talking about bad breath. It might be yesterday, it doesn't matter, but the book was going over bad breath, and it mentioned how some people brush their teeth, to get rid of the bad breath even before they eat breakfast. And I was like, oh, whatever I answered, it's a common thing. I don't remember what I said. But it's moments like that when I always try to catch myself when I'm about to tell students they're wrong about anything, if I don't actually know if what they said is genuinely wrong. And I usually do the best that I can to not create situations where there is a set right or wrong without making it clear that, hey, this is something important to know and to have clear. And then I check to their understanding. So they're kind of like already knowing kind of like what to choose from. And I find that, and it might be kind of a subtle difference, it might not be. But I had a teacher one time teach, right, that you should always try your best not to say no to a student. And this was for the ESOL classroom, for teaching English as a second language, especially with beginners. But always try your best to never say no. Never say that their answer is wrong. Just correct it. Like use pieces of it to make it correct, or add to it to make it right. Right? So, and to redirect. And it seems like it takes more time, but actually you're using that wrong mistake as a teaching opportunity. And a lot of times, if you do that to always make the answer right, then you're always going to create context, and you'll get into the habit of not even just saying just yes, but you'll say yes because. And so every time that anybody gives an answer or says anything, it becomes a teaching moment or like a review. So I think that's why testing and things like that, where I think testing is a good thing to have. I think testing is good, but like testing, I think nowadays testing is more about having students feel what it feels like to do something under pressure more than it is to check their understanding. And I think if you present a test like, okay, this test is kind of, it's challenging your understanding under pressure, then I think that would make it more effective than just saying, okay, we're checking your understanding. Because there's clearly a lot of pressure there. And there's a caveat that is, we understand that if you weren't under pressure, you could do anything that's here sitting in front of you, just like anybody else. But to say that a test is simply to test your understanding, it's kind of like a null and void point. I mean, it's not. I mean, it's clearly, like, it's definitely not. But I think, like, meeting students halfway today where they are, you know, a lot of knowledge seems unnecessary to memorize. And they do have a point compared to what it used to be like. I just think that's a space to kind of compromise. But when I test, or when I've tested in the classroom, the best luck that I've had doing that was giving the same test pretty much throughout the unit. So I would make a test, they would have the unit test, and they would do that as a warm-up, or even if we had extra time at the end of the class, okay, we're going to take the test. And that's because I was teaching English as a second language, but I think it could work really well with any age, or excuse me, any proficiency or any sort of language proficiency. You take the test, some of the questions are really easy, basic, some of them are really kind of more challenging. And then they just do that as a pretest, first of all, before the unit starts, they have the pretest. And then we take that same test throughout the unit. And then at the end of the unit, they take that test, same questions, but it's written instead of, because it was like it was throughout the and there are no surprises. I mean, there are no surprises, but they still had to know the content because instead of it being multiple choice, they had like a word bank. Okay, so it was different. But you could have the same content, right? If you had, native English speakers, if you want to make it not so obvious and memorable, then you could have the same content, but different ways of setting up the questions. And in doing that, it was great. It was a great tool because for the entire unit, I was able to use the test as kind of a planning tool, right? Okay, I know students consistently throughout the unit are getting these, I don't know, geography points wrong, right? So I know that for my do now for the day, it's probably just geography. These are the countries of conflict that we're talking about today. Something new, or it wasn't simple, both the lesson and not just what the students imagine what they needed. And it was simple, it was the same test. It was I really liked that. I think that was incredibly effective. I was surprised how effective that was. And but also no reason to be surprised because it's one of the three basic principles of teaching. There are really just three basic principles of teaching. I know that's upsetting, but it's also not true. But I mean, you have to be able to do these things. So you have these three things, and then if you're not able to do them, then other things become important. But it's just Pre-testing, interleaving, and spacing. Now, pre-testing is more important than post-testing. Pre-testing is more important than post-testing. It makes the instruction way more meaningful. Way more meaningful. Which is why at the beginning of the school year, it's good to have students do activities that require a mix of different skill sets that they're supposed to apply throughout the school year. Because that in of itself serves as a pretest. Hey guys, just so you know, at the end of the school year, you should be able to read, this type of a text or something like that. And then they do, depending on how it goes, you just say, oh, sorry about that. So starting off with not much structure is good. And it could be just purely observational. You don't have to tell them, say, okay, we're just going to read and we're just going to talk about it. They don't have to know or they can know. But yeah, so interleaving, that's an example of interleaving also. But no skill is done purely in isolation, right? Ideally. So whenever you're applying a skill, it should be intertwined with others, but that's the skill that you're focusing on. And then spacing, giving people time to forget something and then coming back to that skill. And so that's why I really like the tests, okay, because it allows you to do all of that. But I wouldn't do the test, every day, or I wouldn't do it, all the time. But it would have some content that would become more important, maybe later, and then some content that was review. There was more review going on than upcoming information going on because it's easier to mix in what you've already done than what's coming up. But yeah. And I like making my own materials. That was another thing that a mentor told me. He told me to make your own materials. Always make your own materials. Make your own materials. So that's what I do. All right. Yeah. Speaking of making your own materials, there are a few good different places you can go to do that. Now, There's so many different materials you can make to actually go about making your own. There are handouts, there are presentations. I'm not really big on making presentations for teaching. I know that's like a go-to. Um, I do not do that. I make presentations, or I have in the past made like agenda presentations, where the presentation pretty much sets the flow, the pacing of the class, the lesson. When I was online, I made presentations, and that's pretty much what I did. Each slide was just a different chunk of the lesson. And that worked out really, really well. Really, really well. It's hard to do that with some classes. It's really tough. But with this one particular class, I was able to plan that out pretty well. And and that was just Google Slides. I've also used Mentimeter before. That might be something that used to be free that no longer is. But it's a presentation deck creation platform where you can actually go in and make interactive slides. Now, I really like using this to make word clouds. One time, I was working with intermediate ESOL students, and they needed a scaffold, or I felt like we needed a scaffold, where they did an assignment as part of deciding what our classroom norms were going to be. And we had a textbook. And the textbook that we had a few pages that listed different classroom rules, just generic rules. And so I had students go through and decide on their own which rule they thought was most important. And then they had to take their time and type it in to the Mentimeter slide. And then, now some of them made some mistakes, but generally they had the same phrase to type in. So the most popular phrase got bigger in the word cloud. And so I printed out that word cloud on the wall for our rules. Okay. That's a really effective scaffold if you're working with English language learners and you want for them to really just tap into different domains with an activity that usually happens in every classroom, right? You don't have to depend on. Now, I did explain directions in Spanish, okay, but you wouldn't really necessarily have to. Now, another way that you could do this is that you could vote, right? You could put them up on the screen and you could say, you know, which one do you think is most important? And then people could just, might not even understand what's going on, but they could still tally next to it. And then with time, they might get an idea of, like, oh, okay, I can vote. But for the most part, chances are people are going to understand that they're voting, even if they don't understand what they're voting for. And that's okay. I mean, a lot of times with English as a second language, depending on the proficiency, it's more about getting people to accept the norm of participating. Because if you don't get people into the norm of participating for the sake of having any sort of interaction with any sort of feedback, right? Because even if the feedback is you're supposed to come up to the front, and then they understand, and then they come to the front, and then it's like you're supposed to draw a line, and then it's like, okay, you're communicating, even if it's super duper basic, and that's building a foundation for further engagement and feedback. And what happens if you don't do that is you just get like the okay, yeah, and there's no real interaction, right? So what seems meaningless, and it might be somewhat, the thing is, it's not meaningless, but you're not engaging in communication that requires language. That doesn't mean it's meaningless. So, being in the classroom, being in the classroom is way more than just the lessons. But I mean, like, this isn't anything new. Like, it's so unfortunate that, you have people who are coming into education and who are like, what? You mean I have to, like, yes. And the reason why it's disappointing is because it is a profession, you know? It is a profession, and there are things that professionals just know. And when you have to explain these things to people who assume they already know, and then they just take these bits of insight, like it didn't require, the 10,000 hours, as they say. It's tiring. It's tiring. You see something where it's like, find a way to capitalize on someone else's 10,000 hours. And I mean, you have people just sitting around waiting for their peers to get 10,000 hours, you know? That is a real thing that people do. That is really sad. Yeah, this is the one that I used. This was the one, they had their own little computers. And so they all just typed in their phrase. It wasn't a word, they typed in a phrase, like raise your hand, respect the teacher. I'm pretty sure respect the teacher was the one that they all put as the most important one. All right, so I'm going to actually finish it off there. We have another really good itinerary for dental health. It's looking pretty strong. The last one's tomorrow. I did release a flyer about Naruto. I can share this with the last couple of minutes that we have, I guess. Let's go to share the screen again. Still hiring. And if you go to the store, then I have this new open book plan. Remember, I don't know if I mentioned this before, I'm starting off pretty slow getting itineraries here just until we get some traction. I would like to get a few more done before I actually post them, just so it doesn't become like overwhelming. Okay. But also improving with the angles and things like that. So we have the signature itineraries. I'm not sure if I want to share the secret ingredients of the signature itineraries just yet, but there is something that makes the signature itineraries unique and different from your normal one. That's over here. It's just not signature. It doesn't have to follow the same regimen of the signature. And yeah, if you get a signature itinerary, then it's in this case it's more expensive, right? But it's not because it's signature. It's not more expensive because it's signature. The activities are a little bit more exciting just for this particular itinerary and a little bit pricier. The Naruto weekend, kind of thinking of it being more family oriented. It's not super pricey, some free activities in the area, but that are just meaningful for the book. Excuse me. And yeah, I mean, not everything here is free. Not everything's free, of course not, but yeah. If you get the signature itinerary, then you will also have the uh, the free admission to the itinerary library, the open book plan. Yep. It's the only plan that's available right now. Other plans, I'm not in any rush to bring on the other plans, but they just be specific to other interests, like different types of book. Like Naruto is among the, there could be a plan specific for travelers that are interested in anime and manga, right? You could also have travelers who are interested in books that inspired films or films that inspired books, but of course the travel would be more based on the book storyline, but it could be about comparing the two, and yeah, things like that. So just having fun, more things to come. I might kind of take a step back. Probably won't be making many more changes to everything. We'll just be adding to things as they are. I haven't really been keeping up with Facebook, mainly because Facebook, you can just pretend like the stuff that you posted yesterday was posted like 10 years ago, and I don't think that's cool. So with that in mind, there's no rush to post on Facebook. When I have time, I can just add everything in that is missing. So I focus on Instagram, YouTube, um, TikTok. I don't think TikTok ever actually went down. So I don't know. I haven't really used TikTok, but yep, that's what we have going on. And perhaps we'll see you tomorrow. All right, bye bye.